Lord, make us instruments of your peace.
Where there is hatred, let us sow love.
Where there is injury, pardon.
Where there is doubt,
Faith. Where there is despair, hope.
Where there is darkness,
light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master,
grant that we may not so much seek
to be consoled as to console,
to be understood as to understand,
to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive,
it is in pardoning that we are pardoned,
and it is in dying
that we are born to eternal life.
Amen.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Numi Magnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Moruga man shot while picking Shadow Benny. Commonwealth Cyber Fellows chart course for regional security. Finance Minister blames public servants for $2.6 billion counting error. And human trafficking bust. 12 women rescued in Shogunas raid. Now for the details. A Moruga man is recovering after being shot while gathering Shadow Benny. Curtis Morgan of Edward Trace was in a garden at Dennis Trace when he tripped, heard a gunshot, and realized he had been hit in the leg. He was taken to the Princestown District Health Facility and later transferred to San Fernando General Hospital. Police are investigating the incident, which comes days after 73-year-old Stevenson Lumi was fatally shot by a trap gun in the area. A roadmap for tackling cyber threats across the Caribbean has been developed by the Commonwealth Caribbean Cyber Fellowship. Representatives from multiple countries met in Port of Spain to discuss strategies against hacking, ransomware, and cyber fraud. The plan includes sharing resources, strengthening cybersecurity policies, and improving regional cooperation. Officials say this initiative will enhance national security and digital resilience across the region. Finance Minister Colum Imbert has denied any wrongdoing in the $2.6 billion understatement in national accounts, shifting the blame to public servants. In a social media post, he insisted there was no missing money and described the discrepancy as an accounting error. His comments follow a Privy Council ruling in favor of Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas in a legal challenge related to the matter. 12 women were rescued and 2 men arrested during a police raid on a suspected human trafficking operation in Shogunas. Officers initially searched the Edinburgh Gardens property for drugs and weapons, but instead found young women from Venezuela, Trinidad, Guyana, Grenada, and Cuba. The women were handed over to the counter-trafficking unit as investigations continue. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Magnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Hello there, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shah. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. There's a lot happening locally, domestically, with national security, and such matters will be addressed on WESN later on this morning. So, of course, I know that there are those who are keen to be a part of that discussion, and of course, those who want to hear more. But at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually focusing on regional security. Of course, Tobago is impacted by that as well. Speaking about impact, we are focusing on the Caribbean Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, also known Impacts, which is headed by CARICOM. Now, following Donald Trump's executive orders to freeze foreign aid over the next 90 days, it's a temporary freeze while his administration assesses the situation and, according to them, realign it according to America First policies. In that regard, CARICOM Impacts is one of the bodies that will be affected by this freeze. But how much of a loss is it to the body? According to the head of CARICOM Impacts, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones, he's indicated that, well, we'll just have to pivot and rely very much on our regional partners for funding, for assistance, and to ensure our operations continue. But the United States has been a significant contributor to regional security in CARICOM. I'm joined this morning for further analysis by instructor, lecturer, teaching assistant, all of the above at the Department of Political Sciences at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, Yuvan Das. Good morning, Sue. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ethan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us indeed. How significant uh, would you say this foreign aid freeze for the next 90 days could be for CARICOM Impacts?
Well, as you know, the Caribbean region has a history of dependency. As we move forward from independence, dependent on the British, and through American imperialism, we had a span of foreign aid developments that focus on not just security, healthcare, education, cybersecurity, developments in trade agreements, preferential treatment, and other initiatives as well. So there will definitely be a significant impact on trade development, security, and other initiatives that were recently funded by the US aid. I remember looking at the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative that we partner US that provides multiple attempts towards vocational training with local NGOs and promoting leadership and employability initiatives as well. That can have serious impacts to us, as a region. We also have the Fulbright program with scholarships, the Thomas Jefferson Scholarship programs, the STEM cybersecurity initiative deal that we have, to promote cybersecurity awareness and other elements towards disaster preparedness and management. So we have significant donations by, US and security training agreements that would potentially suffer from this announcement. And I think they'll put us in a very deteriorated state when it comes to technology, when it comes to access and training and development. A lot of times, usually to fight crime to the best of our potential, we will partner with US agencies and have, skill competency training to our local agencies and our technocrats to allow us to advance technology requirement and learning capabilities fight crime. I'm not saying that we can't do it on our own, but it's been a best practice across the world to partner with the state-of-the-art institutions in most first world nations to share and listen, join, and policy lending and development policies that help us combat crime and other security initiatives. And definitely, they would see a spoke in that wheel, I think.
In that regard as well, looking at what former US Ambassador to Transvago Candice Bond stated in 2023. She said that the US had spent approximately US 830 million in the Caribbean to reduce illicit firearms trafficking, increase public safety and security, promote social justice. In fact, a huge part of this conversation has also been CARICOM's push to deal with crime, particularly gun crimes, as a public health emergency. At this point, could it have possibly been our focus on such, as well as the impact the gun trade in the United States had? Could it be some sort of repercussions for targeting the United States and even blaming the United States for its impact on the Caribbean climate?
I don't think it was intended. I think Donald Trump and his team, as he did before, when he won election, he focused on different funding elements cut for aid and foreign initiatives that had an impact worldwide. I expected the same in his current administration as well. Didn't expect it to be this drastic, to be honest. But I believe that he is trying to re-engineer the management of foreign aid and economy to sort of put back a lot of capital into the U.S. economy to promote extra diversification, and increase balance of trade in the U.S. economies. So not targeted specifically to developing nations such as the Caribbean, but the influence in these policies and now the lack thereof is going to leave us particularly vulnerable to, I would say, the narco elements in Venezuela and Colombia, as well as other drug and enforcement agencies. The lack thereof is going to put us in a very sticky situation when it comes to drug trade as well as gun trade.
So I'll come to that point in just a minute, but referring back to my earlier question, in that sense, in trying to get an understanding, as you indicated, you don't think it was specifically targeted. This is just a general policy as they review US funding and US aid in this regard. But at the same time, does it have any sort of indication that the Caribbean is no longer seen as strategically important, or could that discussion be gaining some sort of fire as it relates to not being strategically important to the United States and their push for security of the Western world?
Well, based on the initiatives taken, we have to wait and see after period what the resounding decision would be, because remember the alignment is supposed to be focused on the US. So if there's little focus on Caribbean initiatives in the future, then definitely I would say that would have a significant impact in reducing partnerships in the future. Because as you know, with foreign aid brings a lot of partnerships, agreements, even trade agreements as well. So in the future, if this happens and if the decisions are taken to reduce the amount of aid, yes, I would say it would sort of sever, not totally, but reduce ties when it comes to the US and also foreign policy directed towards the Caribbean. So that answer to your question is yes, in the future, it would definitely be reduced.
All right, so let's get to that point that you were making, where we become more vulnerable to the narco trade and the illicit gun trade. According to the head of CARICOM Impacts, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones, he says the Regional Security Agency will have to pivot and focus more so on its regional partners to continue its operations. Do you think that the regional partners have the necessary resources and expertise, just based on what we know, to deal with the possibility of increased narcos trade and illicit gun trade activity in the Caribbean?
Well, the answer to that question is yes and no. Because to an extent, we have been trained in the past and we understand the technology, we understand the movement patterns, we understand the trade arrangements and the routes, but we are impacted in terms of our resources, as most third world nations would be. And that partnership would allow us access to satellites, would allow us access to information and security briefings, together with first world collaboration nations and databases and institutions in the US and partnerships with other institutions to allow us capabilities to enhance tracking and intercepting and data information and the, well, I wouldn't say confidential information, but secret intel that could help us be on our P's and Q's and to warn us of shipments and potential trafficking coming our way will be severely reduced. So in that regard, we have to be extra vigilant. We have to form new partnerships. And if that the ally in the US now is going to be something of the past or decreasing in the future, I think that could open up more avenues for us to strengthen our ties with other international organizations and countries, in particular China.
You just indicated, because I was going to ask you exactly which countries could the Caribbean community look at for strategic partnerships. I wasn't expecting you to say China, given that the Donald Trump administration in particular and China have not necessarily had the best history or relationship.
Well, that doesn't mean that Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean wouldn't. We already have, diplomacy with China and arrangements with China in the past, and it could continue and even deepen in the future if the US cuts, a lot of funding and trade agreements in the future. I wouldn't rule it out.
Not necessarily ruling it out, and that's understood, but how much of that is risky business for the Caribbean? We find ourselves in a very precarious situation, trying to deal with this situation, but also in respect to our diplomatic policy, uh, it's going to be very difficult to navigate.
It would be. And one particular instance is the Dragon Gas deal. We have to wait on the acknowledgement and the permission, so to speak, from the US to proceed with this potential deal that could have a lot of positive benefits economic in the future. So we are restrained in terms of our decision-making capacity in that regard because of our diplomatic relations with the US and because of the deteriorating relationship in the US and Venezuela. So definitely between a rough and a hard place, I would say.
So we are held, we are essentially very much vulnerable. That's understood. But are we very much susceptible to US policies? Is that we have no choice but to abide or obey by whatever the US administration of the day indicates? Is that what the Caribbean's position is?
Not necessarily to 100%, but if we want to retain our diplomatic relations, we have to be very careful with how we make our decisions and how it impacts to our regional community and our international allies. So, in examples, if we sign on to the UN and we ratify the treaty, then our decision-making policy should reflect that treaty and the agenda, right? So, particularly for poverty control, unemployment, anti-corruption initiatives, we have to agenda those parts of the treaty in our policy decisions. Part of that would be maintaining the diplomatic relations. And if we engage in trade and development with a non-ally, that could hamper our decision-making policy and trade capacity and even relations with the ally in the future. So I would say it's diplomatic. I wouldn't say it's contingent on, but at the same time, we are sort of forced to make decisions to retain those relations. So I would say
Do you think?
somewhat of a 50,
Sorry, continue.
yeah, somewhat of a 50-50 stringent policy.
Do you think that the Caribbean Basin Initiative is in any way under a threat? So is it just a possibility that it is something that would perhaps be reviewed? We could probably even see some sort of amendments to it.
Yeah, we could definitely see amendments to that. Most of the skill training programs that they use and the leadership resolution employability programs, we would see some funding cuts, I think. If they continue in the future, it might not be as frequent or they might not use as much resources as they did in the past because they have to align with their developmental goals. And as the Trump administration would put it, as long as it's not in America's interest, it will be looked at. So definitely we would see some funding cuts. Hopefully not totally, but we'll definitely see some shifts in the future.
Now, Mr. Das, what does the Caribbean have to offer to the rest of the world? In respect to strategic location, there's been arguments there. But generally speaking, in terms of resources, what does the Caribbean have to offer the rest of the world? Diplomatic relations aren't always just necessarily a handshake. There's always some underlying factor involved. So when you take a look at the United States, when you take a look at other potential partners such as China, what is in it for them?
And okay, if we track our long history, what was in it for them? When we look at the triangular slave trade and indentureship, in the past, what was in it for them was resources, right? Fast track to now, it's still resources. It's still oil and natural gas, it's bauxite, other renewable energy resources, agriculture sometimes, and tourism. So it's not much, but what we have to give can still hold, that relationship open, so to speak. Right? With Trinidad and Tobago, especially with oil and natural gas. And
Oil and natural gas, or expertise in the industry?
not expertise, but resources, right? That can be used in terms of facilitating trade and development.
Well, at this point, Mr. Das, I'll tell you, it's a bit concerning, but to the point that you mentioned earlier in the program, this is just a temporary freeze. It's not to say that this is something that was specifically targeted at the Caribbean community. However, you do expect that cuts will take place, not necessarily fully, but definitely you will see a reduction in some programs. Is this where, we've had a previous conversation about CARICOM not being fully implemented. Do you think that this is actually some sort of stimulus that is needed for greater collaboration amongst CARICOM member states and perhaps for greater implementation of CARICOM policies and what CARICOM was intended for?
I think so. I think we'll have to realign our strategic outlook on the Caribbean community. I think we have to at least engender the idea that we might possibly want to move towards a more economic or political union in the future, something to what the West Indian Federation should have been, and foster that sort of initiative towards regional integration and development. And if we do that, we'll be in a stronger position as a unit, as a Caribbean identity, as a Caribbean trade agreement, if we foster that or engender that initiative towards regional integration in the future. And this may have been the tipping point to start discussions or, to hamper the process of, separation. So let's move away from that and let's talk regional integration to a greater extent. Let's talk, creating a singular currency for the Caribbean. Let's talk trade agreements. Let's talk freedom of movement to a greater extent. So that could be a positive initiative that we could look forward to.
Mr. Das, before we bid farewell for this morning's discussions, do you share any other concerns with this development?
Well, I was looking at it and I saw that the U.S. Embassy donated more than $100,000 to the disaster management unit with the PM. The U.S. aid in their strategic outlook would have started a program with youth empowerment for about $50 million as a wider initiative that they started together with security training for our armed forces. I see potential problems in the future when it comes to capacity building and training and development. But I don't see that we are not resilient enough to overcome this and to move forward with our own self-development and regional integration. So definitely problems when it comes to assistance, when it comes to cutting edge technology and new initiatives and cybersecurity, educational partnerships, even health partnerships. We will see drawbacks in that initiative. We would see a lack of competency in some areas. As we know, corruption is a big thing in the Caribbean as well as Trinidad and Tobago specifically. And those partnerships would have sort of kept it at bay or even decreased it to an extent. And now we have to, create new policies. We have to engender different consultations with government and private partnership initiatives to streamline those issues and to work on it on our own together with other partners, regional partners, and other international partners as well. I do see a significant reduction in some international financial institutions and contributions. If you look at foreign aid and the World Bank and the IMF, how does that impact their initiatives as well? How does that impact the World Health Organization, with the majority of funding pulling out of it? How does that impact their efficiency in detecting pandemics and epidemics, their labs, their productivity, their staffing? So it's not just Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, it's widespread that affects a lot of countries across the world. So that could be a very, very drastic reduction in a lot of capacities towards institutions because of this decrease in foreign aid from one of the largest economies in the world. So I think definitely we have a lot of issues and security issues in the future, environmental issues as well. So we have to be on our P's and Q's in the Caribbean to talk about these issues and how it's going to impact us, our institutions, and start capacity building and planning for development based on the potential decisions to cut significant amount of funding.
Mr. Das, do you think that this, to any degree, concretizes the United States as a global superpower, given the influence that they have on these organizations and the potential impact it can have going forward, as you would have just highlighted? Or do you think that the world is shifting away from the United States and that there are other global superpowers that are rising along with it?
Well, I have to be very careful how I answer that question. But I remember thinking how they approached as a joke to annex Canada and also to take control of Greenland from Denmark, which is an ally under NATO. And I'm thinking, but how much different is that besides starting a hot war to what Russia is doing to Ukraine? So is the world shifting away from the US? World power shifts. In the past, it was the British, right? Now it's the US. And when you look at the fundamental capacities of BRICS nations and who's joining, and then you listen to the development of the BRICS dollar and what the potential value could be, about probably 56 US dollars to one BRICS dollar in terms of trade, how would you look at that as a global outlook? Would the US dollar be the world currency in the future? And powers would shift. And countries, developing countries especially, will be forced to now pick a side what would be more beneficial to them. So I wouldn't rule that out in the future. And these harsh, decisions by the US to cut ties, so to speak, with other countries and reduce their foreign aid and their investment and their influence, that may potentially spark discussion for countries to move towards other nations and, that would provide this level of aid and support in the future. So it could very well be that this decision could now be turning point towards that in the future. I know we have to wait on the decision from the US to see how drastic it would be. But yes, in the future, if they do cut a lot of foreign aid, it would actually send up a red flag for a lot of countries to see, well, okay, now we have to redesign our strategy. And that could possibly be one of the benefits.
Well, it's only been just over a week, heading into 2 weeks under Donald Trump administration. Not much that has happened thus far is entirely surprising. But, Mr. Das, we will observe. In time, we will know more. And of course, that leaves a room for conversation to occur. But at this point, thank you very much for your time, sir. Thank you very much for your presence on the program. And all the very best to you.
You're very welcome. Thanks again.
Take care. Well, Well, ladies and gentlemen, we continue to observe developments coming out of the United States and its potential impact on the Caribbean community, of course, and those conversations we will share with you on AM Prime. Very, very important. As I said at the beginning of the conversation, a lot is happening domestically, but we also need to focus on what is happening regionally and internationally and its impact, not just on Trinidad and Tobago as a nation, but the Caribbean as a whole. We take a break here on the program, ladies and gentlemen. We will return shortly. Stay with us.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner. Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning. We're shifting away from all the, well, not necessarily nice things that are happening to something brilliant that is taking place right here in Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, it's a celebration of the first capital of TNT, and I wonder how many of you actually know what the first capital of Trinidad and Tobago is. Well, you're going to find out more in this conversation this morning as we focus on the Joy of Giving Music Festival, a celebration of St. Joseph's music and culture. It's been dubbed a revival of St. Joseph's music and culture. This morning, I'm joined by the president of the Trinidad and Tobago First Capital Committee, Dr. Louis Nurse. Good morning, Dr. Nurse.
Good morning, my worthy brother, and good morning to Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Dr. Nurse, thank you very much for joining us. You hold a plethora of titles. I had pianist, I had composer, I had producer, I had Louis and Links, and now president of the First Capital Committee.
Yes, see, what happened is that the First Capital Committee is an NGO that's based in the St. Joseph community. And our purpose is to promote St. Joseph and promote St. Joseph in its diversity and in its capacity and capability, because we have a tremendous amount of talent in our district. And what's interesting is that the first capital was established in 1592. You see, people have to know the history. Until 1783, Trinidad was a Spanish country. We were under the Spain. And the capital was established in 1592, and we have the oldest church that was built in 1815. In other words, Trinidad started, that cultural diversity started in St. Joseph. And we, for example, we have the San Jose Serenaders and the whole introduction of Parang. And all these different musical genres. You had Mr. Mano Maslin, one of the brass band icons. And we also have not only the Catholic Church, but we also have the largest mosque, which is down at Abercrombie Street. So the community is a diverse community that's brought together by this callaloo of cultures. And it's
I like what you said that, a callaloo of cultures.
Yes, it is. And it's really, it gives us a powerful platform to maintain and to promote the St. Joseph community. And that's what we are about.
Dr. Nis, why is this music festival being dubbed a revival of St. Joseph's music and culture? Exactly what has happened to St. Joseph's contribution to culture and the arts in Trinidad and Tobago that it now has to be revived?
Well, what happened is that, remember we had COVID, and people kind of forget that COVID is 2020, 2019 to 2020 coming forward. We're in 2025. So within the last 5 years, what we have seen is things have stopped. COVID stopped everything, literally stopped everything. So you will find that even though we have a whole group of young people now, remember when COVID started, a child might have been 5 years, they're 10 years old today. Or if they were 10 years, they'd be 15 years old. And they would have missed out on that connectivity that makes the St. Joseph community powerful, because the park is the center of the town of St. Joseph, just like how, and but here was interesting. The names of the streets in St. Joseph are the same names of the streets in Port of Spain. You have Charlotte Street, you have Piccadilly, and we have Abercrombie Street. It's just like that. And what has happened is that the park, being the vortex of that ecosystem, allows us now to bring back, because you used to have the police band coming to play, you used to have Parang in the park, you would have Diwali in the park, and the park is really a space of activity that's surrounded by 6 schools. You have 6 schools: a secondary school, St. Joseph Convent, St. Xavier's, St. Joseph RC Girls, St. Joseph Boys Primary School, 6 schools that surround the park. So the park is really a space that people come to every day.
And the park is the gathering point of this music festival that's taking place on Sunday. What can we expect? What can patrons expect from this music festival?
Well, what they can expect, first we have PAN, which is Casablanca Steel Orchestra. They're going to be playing. You have Nuestra Cosa, which is our St. Joseph parent side that comes off from the San Jose group or the Flores family, because St. Joseph is a group of families that work together. And then we have Louis and the Lynx. Now,
Louis and the Lynx? Who are them? I've never heard of them before.
I'm telling you, I am celebrating 50 years this year. 50 years, this is my 50th year as an active performing musician. I started in St. Mary's College in 1975. So the interesting thing is that in the band we have Khadija Jeremiah, Cherise Collymore, AJ St. Louis on saxophone, Wayne Waldron as a vocalist, and we also have Richard Nurse, who's been playing the quattro. So there's he's my son, so there's what I would call a generational handover. They say the fruit don't fall far from the tree. So we have a range. We playing jazz. I'll be playing soca music, of course, because this is the season. And the music will represent not only the diversity of musical taste, but also represent a joyous fellowship for family. So your family could come. We encouraging St. Joseph people and people from the environs. Bring your children. It's from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock in the night. And we go in on time. We have security. We'll have bouncy castles, face painting, these type of things. There's no alcohol allowed in the event. It's a family event. It's a children's event. And where we want to join together in that ecosystem called the park. And that park, it was interesting about that park. If the St. Joseph was established in 1592, how old do you think the trees in the park are? Just a thought. Just a thought of what you think about. There are 3 trees in the park that my mommy died at 100. She met them there. Right? And these trees, I call them the sentinels of the park. They have been standing there observing the history of Trinidad and Tobago flow from 1592 to now.
If those trees could only talk, I wonder what they would say. I really wonder what they would say. As you said, they've been the sentinels. They've been observing all that has been happening in the community of St. Joseph. But Dr. Ness, first of all, congratulations on 50 years of Louis and the Lynx. That is absolutely incredible. You said your mom passed at 100 years, so we wish 50 more years of Louis and the Lynx, of course. Um, but, coming back to this festival in particular, it sounds incredible in respect to St. Joseph and what it offers culturally, of course, and in respect to the art forms. But this sounds like it's doing a lot more for community development and even social development. You're bringing families together and you're creating a sort of a family hub in the center of St. Joseph.
Yes, and that you put it very, very properly, because it's not a one-off activity, because the park is now called First Capital Park, but that is one of the outputs of our committee. That was done by our committee. It used to be called George Earl Park, and we walked the road to have the name of the park changed to reflect what I would call the ambitions of the community. So our committee is committed to continuing having activities in the park, but having activities in St. Joseph that would engender a choice, because that's one of the problems that we have in our country, right? We talk about crime and things. I don't want to discuss the negatives, but the question is, what are we doing on the other side? That's the question I want to answer. What are we doing in St. Joseph to change the trajectory of people's choices? Or what our committee is committed to, and the team that works with us, is to sponsor and promote activities that are an alternate to negative behavior. So you could come to the park and play cricket, for example. We want to bring back wind ball cricket in the park, things like that. We want to do a jazz festival in the schools and have the children take part. In other words, let us step in a leadership way to be able to encourage other people to join in a cause that will benefit us all. That's what we're about, and that's what this concert is about.
Dr. Ness, previously I asked you what can patrons expect when they come to this festival, but what do you, as president of the First Capital Committee, what are you hoping for to be achieved, or at least to be portrayed to the public from this particular festival?
Well, first we want to show people there's an alternate. All the music on that stage is going to be live music. And I think it's something I want us to remember. The music that you're listening to, in a lot of ways, are computer-generated music. Music without emotion, music with a message, but somehow it's not real. And the St. Joseph Parang, for example, Parang is real music. Real people playing real quattros, and Louis and the Lynx is a real band playing real music, which is what stimulates young people. Young people who will come and sit in the park. We have chairs. We will have chairs for the patrons, and they will be able to walk up to the steel band or even sit and watch real people play real instruments for their enjoyment and for their pleasure. So we want to be able to measure our performance or measure our success by the amount of people who come down to the park and enjoy an evening of positive vibrations, fellowship, and fun. That's what we're trying to do, because we want people to understand that you are coming back. The word coming back here is that you are coming to connect with the vortex of St. Joseph, that center, that energy center. Because when the architects designed St. Joseph, just like how they designed Port of Spain, the Queen's Park Savannah, for example, is an open space that allows freedom, that allows creativity, that allows inspiration and innovation to flow into a community. And the park is that. When you sit in the park on a quiet night in one of the benches, and that breeze comes across the northern range, and you feel that breeze, and you hear the rustle of the trees, those are things that helps people to be inspired to write songs, to write books, and of course the the Catholic Church plays a very important role in our community. We're the only community, as far as I know, where the church bells wake you up in the morning.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I have visited the park many a times, and it really has been a hub. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a very beautiful park. And if it's one thing I'll say, Dr. Nis, it's still one of those parks that are very much active and utilized in Trinidad and Tobago. We have many parks, and I see them just there, empty, lifeless, and that's quite unfortunate. The St. Joseph Park just seems to be that hub, that place where everybody goes to in the community.
Yes, and we are going to be performing from the pavilion. We're not building a stage. We are performing from the pavilion, and the pavilion, the pavilion is a circle. So this is going to be very interesting. We are playing in a circle rather than a square. Because
That's like something you saw in the old days. Standing in the pavilion performing in the park.
That's right. That's right. And what happens is the circle now allows people to be around it. So it's not only you're on stage facing a group, which is the traditional concept that we have. People are going to be around the pavilion. So they'll be looking at the band from a 360 view, rather than a simple looking forward square. You sit on the ground and you look up to the band. But you're sitting around the band in a setting where people can see the band from different angles, and which allows people to enjoy the different performers based on the angle that they sit, not just the ones who are in front that they will be listening to.
And of course, as you mentioned, this is taking place this Sunday. It's open to all to come and enjoy. Is it that people have to purchase tickets, or they can just come and be a part of it?
No tickets. The park is open, and we want people to come. The only things on the police have arranged parking. We have to thank the St. Joseph Police Station and the fire services for their intervention, because we are under the SOE, and we had to make sure that everything is done in a proper fashion. So we're going to have parking on the streets. Some of the streets will be blocked to allow for parking. So there'll be Columbia Street will be open, but Victoria Street will be used for parking, Market Street will be used for parking, and there'll be parking around the park, and the police will be there to direct people also where to park. So we have this parking with police security and under police supervision, and the function itself is under the St. Joseph Police Station and their security protocols. So people are not, they're coming into a secure space. The park is a secure place. It's totally fenced, but with the intervention of the police and the cooperation of the St. Joseph Police Station, we want to thank the St. Joseph Police in particular for their cooperation in making sure that this event is safe. It's the safest event on the calendar.
Indeed. Well, I want to thank you very much, for the committee and for all those involved for putting this together. And just to remind our viewers, it's the joy of giving a free music festival. Of course, everybody likes that word free, but the joy of giving and what St. Joseph has to offer, they're sharing it with all of Tobago. So attend, it's taking place this Sunday, the 2nd of January, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. At the First Capital Park, Abercrombie Street, in St. Joseph. As we would have heard from Dr. Nis, you've got Louis and the Links, Nuestra Cosa Parang Band, you've got the Casablanca Steel Orchestra, well, I mentioned Louis and the Links, of course, 50 years of that band, and being an active band. Never took a break. And of course, we have Errol Fabian, who is leading proceedings for that event taking place at 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. This Sunday. So you can expect parang, pan, and jazz. And in case you were wondering, yes, there are refreshments that will be available, including doubles, cotton candy, corn soup, popcorn, drinks, of course, and there will be face painting and bouncy castles for the kids And I know there may be some adults as well who'd want to participate in that. So, sure. Dr. Nurse, thank you very much. This sounds really, really incredible on the part of the First Capital Committee and all stakeholders involved. So thank you so much for this. And of course, all the very best for the event taking place this Sunday.
Thank you very much, my worthy brother. I'm looking forward to seeing you come across.
Oh, I will be there. As I said, I know that park very well, very familiar with it, and very much enjoy just being there. As you said, sitting down on the bench, just enjoying the breeze alone is an absolutely wonderful thing. So some jazz, some parang, and some breeze is going to be a wonderful thing on Sunday afternoon.
Thank you.
All the very best. Take care.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. We will return shortly. We've got more to get into this morning. Stay with us.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private healthcare affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Numi Magnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Moruga man shot while picking Shadow Benny. Commonwealth Cyber Fellows chart course for regional security. Finance Minister blames public servants for $2.6 billion counting error. And human trafficking bust. 12 women rescued in Chagonas raid. Now for the details. A Moruga man is recovering after being shot while gathering Shadow Benny. Curtis Morgan of Edward Trace was in a garden at Dennis Trace when he tripped, heard a gunshot, and realized he had been hit in the leg. He was taken to the Princestown District Health Facility and later transferred to San Fernando General Hospital. Police are investigating the incident, which comes days after 73-year-old Stevenson Lumi was fatally shot by a trap gun in the area. A roadmap for tackling cyber threats across the Caribbean has been developed by the Commonwealth Caribbean Cyber Fellowship. Representatives from multiple countries met in Port of Spain to discuss strategies against hacking, ransomware, and cyber fraud. The plan includes sharing resources, strengthening cybersecurity policies, and improving regional cooperation. Officials say this initiative will enhance national security and digital resilience across the region. Finance Minister Colum Imbert has denied any wrongdoing in the $2.6 billion understatement in national accounts, shifting the blame to public servants. In a social media post, he insisted there was no missing money and described the discrepancy as an accounting error. His comments follow a Privy Council ruling in favor of Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas in a legal challenge related to the matter. 12 women were rescued and 2 men arrested during a police raid on a suspected human trafficking operation in Chaguanas. Officers initially searched the Edinburgh Gardens property for drugs and weapons, but instead found young women from Venezuela, Trinidad, Guyana, Grenada, and Cuba. The women were handed over to the counter-trafficking unit as investigations continue. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning as we get into our final conversation. It is election season in Trinidad and Tobago, and if you were not aware, where have you been living? You know, the campaigns have started, the walkabouts have started, the advertisements have started, and of course, the unfortunate rhetoric when it comes to politics in Trinidad and Tobago has also started. Now, the thing is, we are very much aware of racism in our political rhetoric in Trinidad and Tobago, or people sometimes just try to stay quiet about it. They refuse to acknowledge that it is taking place, but it is a problem that time and time again we've mentioned on AM Prime needs to be addressed. The question is whether or not politics, which has a morality of its own, according not to Bastio Pandey, but somebody way before his time, he copied that quote, we'll get into that in a bit, exactly who is to hold us to higher standards, exactly who is to hold politicians to greater accountability when it comes to that level of rhetoric. Well, I'm joined this morning by a political analyst, Dr. Shane Mohammed, who joins us once more on the program. Good to see you. Welcome back to the program.
Same here, same here. Thank you so much. I like your opening question, and that the simple answer to that question is we hold ourselves to a higher standard. And as I said to a class last night, a class of young professionals, they are the ones that are the silent majority. That does not. They have an opinion, but they stay silent. They choose to stay silent. They understand the ethics. They understand the integrity of the office. Because at the end of the day, professionals hold themselves at a certain standard, right? And we all expect that when you are going into a particular office, those standards are upheld. But if we were to look around the world, politics does have a morality of its own, and it seems as though as we look to the present and to the future, that quote-unquote morality is quickly eroding into an immorality of its own, and that persons with shady backgrounds, persons with questionable characters, persons with what we would perceive as habits of unnatural habits in terms of their vices, and I use that word loosely, pivoting it against the American politicians and that sort of thing. Sometimes we look for perfection, and we can't get perfection in politicians. We can't even get we can't get perfection in corporate governance. We can't get perfection in good corporate leadership, as per the whole issue that arose with Massey, with Angelique Parasol Potter. So what are we looking for? in terms of ethics and what are we looking for with regard to this higher standard? Are we simply looking for returning back to what the true essence of politicians, politics is supposed to be, which is servant leadership? Or are we just going to say that politics has a morality of its own and going down the road of, well, everybody's the same? If we continue with the narrative of everybody's the same thing, and when everybody come in office, they don't do nothing, then who's to blame for that? The traditional voters, the on-the-fence voters, the non-voters, the society as a whole?
But Dr. Mohammed, the answer seems so simple. The answer seems so straightforward, and yet we find ourselves having this conversation time and time again. It's not that I'm getting frustrated of it because I think it's a conversation that is very much valid, but it just seems to be so much of a recurring point, and yet so simple and straightforward of an issue to deal with.
How much, the question I want to ask is, when you look at the history of race and politics, specifically in Trinidad and Tobago, okay, up until the 1970s, and I stopped there up until the 1970s, and then from the 80s come forward, has it been real racial politics or politics and race by design? Or proxy? I would say it's more race and politics by proxy. I think we are in Trinidad and Tobago, we are hypocrites, we are conveniently racist.
Okay, just expand on that point. Conveniently racist, and you said
conveniently racist. Because we are in the middle of the carnival season, and if it's one thing that we could use as an example, it's carnival. But when it comes from the minute we get, let's not even go to carnival, let's go to Christmas. But from Christmas, for the period, and period ending mid-November all the way to Ash Wednesday, we are conveniently, we are one people. We are happy and we are excited and we are having a time with each other. We and everybody partying in everybody's house. We paranging, we partying, we socaing, we fetting. And that goes on for a period of up until, not even for local government elections, for every 4 years and 9 months, I would say. Every 4 years and 9 months, we suddenly become racial or racist. Obviously, we can't mix racialism and racism. We can't tie racism with religious ignorance, right? So obviously, during in the run up to Diwali, you have those who want to profess that Hindus shouldn't do this and they shouldn't be doing that. Their worship is as this. That's utter nonsense. It's as if we've not been existing in this country since 1845. But racism, we are racist by proxy. We are conveniently racist. I'm not going to say though, and I'm saying that from a holistic perspective. Obviously, there are characters within society that are pushing a racist agenda, but that's because they themselves sought to go an alternative political route, didn't get it the way they would have wanted it, and then they switch back and say, well, the UNC racist or the PNM racist. But it's also about agenda setting from an individualistic perspective. So if an individual does not necessarily get what they set out to receive by switching political sides, and they have to resort back to their original moorings, and they ask the question, well, why you didn't stay in the UNC, or why you didn't stay in the PNM? Well, them racial, them only seen about black people, they only see about Indian people. It's a sickening level. It's a sickening approach to self, to give yourself some sort of to give oneself a level of self gratification or justification for acting in a particular way. But generally, holistically, from a national perspective, not even, and even if you were to look into the Tobago context, Tobago has its fair share of Indians that live in Tobago, not having and generationally living in Tobago that don't see themselves necessarily as Indians, but they see themselves as Tobagonians, and it's a whole different culture that exists there. That we should try to reflect. Are we're not we're racial, and I stand by we're racial by proxy, not in real politics.
Could you, the question though is, could you remove racial rhetoric? Could you remove racial propaganda from politics in Trinidad and Tobago?
I think you can.
Could it be separated?
More than, I think Basio Pandey proved it, Patrick Manning proved it, the NAR to some extent proved it, Kamala Prasad-Bissessar proved it, and Keith Rowley proved it as well. In the whole diversification, trust, and continuity of both major political parties in Trinidad and Tobago, we saw the diversification happening more so from Mr. Pandey from 95 to 2000, and then we saw it from Mr. Manning moving from 2000 all the way to 2010. We saw it with Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar in 2010 to 15, and then we saw it, the culmination of that diversification thrust is the selection and imminent or pending election of Stuart Young as the potential political leader of the PNM. I can't say Prime Minister elect yet because we still have an election for them to.
Well, Prime Minister in waiting.
Yeah, I mean the Prime Minister presumptive, right?
Yeah.
So, it is. I think that's where the conversation ends in terms of where we've. I mean, if you were to ask me, and I have been asked this question, if there were to be for some reason a reason for Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar to step down as political leadership of the party, her deputy political leader Julian John is very much equipped and very much experienced enough to lead the party going forward. So the diversification of both political parties is very much present, and if it's not, and in your face present. So to the extent that all political parties now have has a level of diversification in it where I can say without a shadow of a doubt that we are racist by proxy. We're not really racist. We're racist because we want to be. You can't want to expect to go to a fete and party and wine and jam with everybody Carnival Monday and Tuesday, everybody having a time, and then what, because somebody's skin is a different color, you're not going to lime and wine with them? I mean, let me be real.
Well, Carnival is certainly a prime example, but yet when it comes to this sort of rhetoric, why do we wave our flags? Why is it that yes, we can find that you keep saying racist by proxy? It's not that I'm disagreeing with you, but I find it hard to believe that after all this time, we are still very much accepting of the sort of rhetoric. And I find it so difficult to believe that to a certain extent, we support that rhetoric. You know, so even though you're saying,
I don't think so.
Okay, go ahead.
So I don't think we accept the rhetoric. The vast majority of us, I am of the strong belief that the 2025 general election is going to be determined by non-traditional voters. The 2025 election for both political parties, the race is to capture minds of young persons from the age of 18 to 35, and in terms of young professionals, and then the 40 to 55 category of persons. And I don't believe that those persons are embracing.
But have you seen some sort of push or thrust to actually try and elevate those voters, or to try and encourage those voters to come out?
But that's a different question. That's about political strategy and whether or not both political parties are smart or are what's the word? Present. I would use the word present. Whether they are present enough to understand how do they capture the minds of the Gen Zs, and how do they capture the minds and Gen Zs across the board how do they capture the minds of the young professionals? And capturing the minds of the Gen Zs is not about talking about who black and who red and who pink. And I mean, the whole discussion about talking about whether Stuart Young is from Lal Bihari, Trace and Devi, I don't think, if anybody was doing their homework and doing their research, they would know that the man is mixed race. The man has deep ties in South, that his maternal ties are from South. But even the statement by the Prime Minister about Stuart Young being from Lal Bihari, Trace and Devi is irrelevant. It is not a matter of where somebody is or comes from or where their moorings are. I am originally from Princestown. I am a South boy. Pandey was from Princestown. Manning was a South boy. It is not a matter of whether Robinson was Tobagonian. I mean, it is not a matter of where one comes from. It's a matter of whether, when understanding where one's roots are and then understanding the life that they would have lived or would have experienced, and their ability to connect to the issues, that the socio-economic issues that are affecting those that they wish to vote for them, especially given there's a track record here. We have to also pivot the track record of the PNM versus the UNC, that the PNM focuses on urbanization and urban development and those large, big projects, as opposed to the UNC government that starts, and 95 to 2001 was an example, 2010 to 2015 was also an example, that the UNC or UNC-led administrations tend to start from the rural communities, giving opportunities to rural communities, people from the connecting with the quote-unquote ground, and then moving into urban areas. So it's about, so it's not a matter, and I said this on another station, I'll say it here, it's not a matter of whether or not Stuart Young is Chinese, Indian, mixed race, colored. I mean, there are others in his party that are of the same background. Take, for example, Faris Al-Rawi as another one, Renuka Sagram Singh Sukla, Richie Sukai, Mohammed Yusuf Ibrahim, even Rohan Sinanan, Kazim Hussein, this boy from, who's also Avinash Singh. There are so many, right? But the bottom line is, do these persons, given their backgrounds, given their upbringings, do they maintain or do they have the capacity and capability to connect to the ordinary citizen on the ground, sit with somebody on a corner? There's an infamous picture of Mr. Warner back in the day and Mr. Volney sitting on the corner. I think it's a street corner in either Mount Lambert or Mount Dore. Can they sit down? I mean, we criticize him, but and we criticize him from the perspective of him losing his ability to effectively represent St. Joseph. But the fact remains is that Terence Dialsing it's known that Dialsing sits and lime in a particular spot in his constituency and is able to, sit down and talk. Whether he's delivering to the constituency is a different level, is a different question, right? But do these persons have the ability to connect to those who they wish to vote for them?
Does party politics allow for them to connect to their
Well, it
constituents
should.
in the manner of which you are describing?
Well, it should, of course, it should, because obviously Mr. Manning and Mr. Pandey...
It should, but does it?
In some instances it does, in other instances it does not. And I think you have to take it from a constituency by constituency level. Why did Esmond Ford win the Tunapuna seat, for example, outrightly against the partnership, having had good representation from Winston Dukaran between 2010 and 15? Has to also do with the fact that, one, the PNM placed a candidate that had a reputation of being connected to his constituents, well, connected to his burgesses, first and foremost at the local government level, and then maintaining that connect and that availability to the ground. That's just Tunapuna, for example. If we were to use Barataria Sanwan at Fuad Khan, or if we were to use Rudal Munilal in Oropuch East, if we were to go back and use Jack Warner in Chaguanas West, if we were to use Mr. Manning in Senior in San Fernando East, or even Mr. Manning Jr. in San Fernando East. Yes, there are persons who have maintained the ability to connect to the ground and to represent their constituency in a balancing act that is not the easiest, but has been achieved. And there are others who are failing miserably. And unfortunately, some of those that are failing miserably hold very leading positions in political parties and in government. We could even take, for example, why does Penelope Beckles have such overwhelming and resounding support, not only in her constituency, but across political divide? It is because she represents a certain level of connect and relatability and understanding of what people's needs are. And she's not a snob.
Let me just change a shift a bit for a moment. Is the notion of safe seats in Tobago because of the connectivity that candidates tend to have with the constituents, or is safe seats in Tobago due in part to a sense of racial recognition or racial rhetoric?
Okay, so I think it has to do with okay, let's go back, right? Let's use it for an example. If we were to use Laventille East and West, particularly as an example, one can ascertain that there's a probability, and I use the word probability, that interlinks race with political association, right? However, I don't believe that if the PNM were to use an experiment and place a non-African person, because obviously there are Indians that live in Mova, Laventille, and come on, let's be real, right? So if they were to take an Indian person or a non-black person from the area and put them in the seat, Laventille East and West will vote for them as opposed to the UNC. We have to take into consideration that Laventille East and West in 33-3 stood up against the were the only two seats that stood up against the PNM. So the question is, why? There's a historical background there. The majority of persons who live in Laventille East and West have a loyalty to the PNM because of Dr. Williams' invitation for persons to come to Trinidad and Tobago and to be able to settle here from outside of, from the islands. So if you were to take Mr. Warner, who lived from Shogunas, who was a black man representing the heart of the UNC in Shogunas West, then you see for yourself, people are accepting. There may be, however, a deep connectivity to loyalty to party. Does the party represent and this might be I might be contradicting myself here, because again, we're using the different probabilities. Does the UNC base in Shogunas West, are they racist? No. Well, they voted for a non-Indian person before. They probably would they voted for Hindus. They probably would vote for Muslim. I mean, the Shogunas mayor is a Muslim person. So I think it's all about people looking for good representation. It's about the parties not understanding that we have to some extent, and I'm using the word extent, to some extent evolved as a society. And the racist, racial connotations, what's the word? The racial norms that they are accustomed to may not necessarily exist in today's world.
I have come to the point where, in listening to this conversation and in having these conversations previously, Dr. Mohammed, is that in itself promoting a rhetoric? Are these conversations in itself highlighting something which is not necessarily there?
No, I think the conversation to this point that we've had thus far has made it very clear in my mind that we are saying that the persons responsible for the racial rhetoric is the disconnected politicians who still believe somehow that a non-Indian person cannot represent somebody in Oraput West. I mean, there are dynamics. So if you take, for example, there was once the belief that St. Joseph, the representative from St. Joseph, had to be of a certain, had certain characteristics, physical characteristics and backgrounds that was needed to represent St. Joseph. So, for example, there was the belief that it had to be somebody who was Cocopayal or red, as we like to say, of a strong Catholic background because of the deep Catholic roots in St. Joseph. And now we're seeing that in 2025 there are 2 Indians that are well, thus far, right, and Gary Griffith. So we'll see how that holds and whether Michaela Pandey decides to put a candidate there. But let's go for it from a UNC PLM perspective. We are seeing that in the St. Joseph particularly, the UNC has put an Indian person who is Hindu, and the PNM has put an Indian person who is Presbyterian. So you have 2 Indians in St. Joseph in what was supposed to be a seat that would have more embraced a mulatto, Cocopayal, a red person. That's one example. I've used the Shogunas West example. You know, we have to move away from the dynamics of race relations. I mean, I don't think we are not. This is a conversation that is important because we are the ones, and I am one of those who are saying that no, it is not. We are racist by proxy. We are not racial people. If we were racial people, then we would not have tolerance for each other to the point where we see the need to have something like Indian Arrival Day. I mean, the PNM Indian Arrival Day, African Emancipation Day. The PNM changed the name from Emancipation Day to African Emancipation Day. Okay, cool. Does it stop us from non-Africans from dressing in African way and being part of the Emancipation Day celebrations? No. Do you see a government, regardless of which government, saying to its Indian ministers or members, this is all about the Africans and that you can't be a part of it? No. Are there Indians that are spiritual Baptists? Yes. Are there Indians that are non-Indians that are Hindus? Yes. And Muslims? Yes. Obviously, we've seen that across the world. So when you do we look forward? When we go to the Diwali Nagar, do we see only Indians going to the Diwali Nagar? No. In fact, I think we look forward to being able to dress in the different ethnic ways that represent our racial backgrounds. I think what we need to look at, Keith, on a different level, is that since we on the trajectory of changing things and changing the coat of arms to include the steel pan, okay, no problem. But my issue is, if you're changing something, it should be modern, right? And let's just go with something, and I'll tell you where am I heading in this direction. Why am I heading in this direction? If we are changing things that represent us and enhancing things that represent us as a people, and the coat of arms being the starting point, by putting the steel pan on the coat of arms as a representation of our identity, our heritage, our innovation, fine. But don't tell me you're going to change the color, you're going to include the steel pan on the coat of arms, and then the whole damn coat of arms change color from being modern and being multicolored and having a green palm tree and blue Caribbean waters of the Caribbean Sea and lush green mountains, and then all of a sudden you put a golden steel pan and the palm tree dead, the lush waters turn to brown as if it's always brown. The mountains turn brown. So I don't understand. Is it that in our evolution, the new coat of arms that has been presented with the inclusion of the golden steel pan? I never see a gold steel pan in my life, so you could tell me if you ever see one. But whether the steel pan, the inclusion of the steel pan put us into retrograde, so we are not living in what is it? So I see it, and I can be, and I want to be cynical here, and to some extent provocative and cheeky. Is it that the inclusion of the steel pan in 2025 in Trinidad and Tobago and the whole changing of the color codes of the coat of arms, which I see to be very retro, it's very old looking. Is it that a reflection of who we are as from a socioeconomic perspective? Is it that in recognition of the pan as our own, even though we recognize steel pan as a product of Trinidad and Tobago and an innovation of Trinidad and Tobago, we have also killed the tourism industry, so the waters have turned brown and the mountains are brown? Have we lost the agriculture and agrarian industry in Trinidad and Tobago, so the palm tree dead? You know, where are we in terms?
Dr. Mohammed, I'll tell you, you're starting a whole new conversation.
We're talking about identity, and identity is beyond just race and class. And let me ask you this: why have we not moved in terms of how we call ourselves? Why are we still calling ourselves Trinidadians and Tobagonians? Why have we not told the world that we are no longer Trinidadians and Tobagonians, but we are Trinbagonians internationally as one
I
people?
use that. I always ensure that
Because
I use that word Trinbagonian. I am Trinbagonian.
I am Trinbagonian as well. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think my piece, I have over the years, and in studying the politics of Tobago, I advocate strongly for why Tobago needs its autonomy and why the autonomy of Tobago is important to the development and progress of Tobago. And if St. Kitts and Nevis could be a federation, why can't Trinidad and Tobago be a federation too? But all of that, I'm saying, speaks to our identity. And if we want to just, so race, that is why I continue to say we are racial by proxy, because when you look at it, even when you talk about Tobago, when Trinidadians talk about Tobago, when people can't get the time to run away to Grenada or Barbados or St. Lucia, they run away to get a little breeze in Tobago. And now that Tobago has Carnival, Trinidadians have two options to fete twice a year now, right? And Tobagonians as well has two options to fete twice a year now. One in February and March, and one in October for sure. Now, all of that.
Dr. Mohammed, I'm sorry to interject. The one option that we don't have is extended time this morning. We're out of time. Actually, we're over time.
So the bottom line is this. We cannot want to talk about race, but we want to talk about race from a political perspective, because if we're talking about race and politics, then we are giving credence from the perspective that these people who push that agenda, and I say these individuals that push the agenda, are winning. And I am saying that they have not won. And unless we take them off the airwaves, we dismiss them from the discussion, we cancel them, as we like to say in the Gen Z language, then we are giving them an opportunity to continue to spread a certain nonsense. The bottom line is, they may be racial individually, and racial individually because they switch sides or they hold. I mean, if you're so racist, you shouldn't be eating roti and doubles. You should, if you're so, I mean, that's how cynical and how picky I'm going to be. A pot of pilau shouldn't be something that resonates in your house, right? So, really and truly, in Trinidad and Tobago, it is very difficult to talk about race and politics without going down the route of what our identity looks like and whether or not, you know, we are hardcore racist. I mean, when you look at Guyana and you look at the United States, there's a different level of racism. And it also has to do with a level of losing.
Guyana in particular is a very
Guyana in
study.
particular, right?
Yeah.
But that in itself also is changing and is evolving. And they are recognizing the same. But if you look at the United States, they're deeply divided along racial lines. So if you want to talk about race, let's look at that. And they are a first world country, claim to be the most powerful nation in the world, but they suffer from serious racial tensions and racial divide. We don't.
Dr. Mohammed, I want to thank you for your time this morning. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and opinions with us. And of course, when last year heard that word cocoa pan, old boy, I wonder how many people actually know what that word cocoa pan, what that term means.
And you see, that's why I tell you, racial by proxy, because if they really understand us from a cultural and a heritage background, they understand the importance of that word.
Indeed. Well, Dr. Mohammed, thanks very much for your time this morning. All the very best, and of course, we will chat again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that signals the end of AM Prime for this week on WESN Constant Capital. Of course, there's a lot more happening, so you can stay tuned because the Talking Points is up next with Sean Michael Small. I'll be joining him this morning to share in that particular conversation as we look at what we know thus far in relation to Earl Edward Christopher being detained for questioning as it relates to the FUL import license for, well, what is being described as snipers. So we'll get into that conversation a bit later on. But for now, as it relates to EM Prime, thank you very much to all my guests for joining me this morning. Stress once more of the event that is taking place this Saturday at First Capital Park, Abercrombie Street in St. Joseph from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. It is a celebration of St. Joseph, a revival of its music, arts, and culture, the Joy of Giving Music Festival. So that's taking place this Sunday, the 2nd of February, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you to Dr. Iwandas and thank you to Dr. Sheen Mohammed for joining us on the program, and to you, the viewer, of course, for your time and for being here with us. To my team, Ryan Gomez-Burke, Milewood in studio, and of course, Naomi McNish, we all wish you a great day ahead. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day, and hopefully a great weekend ahead. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jang Bahadur. Singing sensation Deval Chaitlal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.
Between the Bank and the Gutter, a novel about street dwellers in Port of Spain. This is a book to make you both laugh and cry. Above all, it takes you to that special space that only street dwellers know. In this moving and riveting human interest story, Harry journeys from insanity to sanity while living on the streets of Port of Spain. Now available at Metropolitan Books, 12 Aripita Avenue, Woodbrook. Paper-based bookshop, 14 Alcazar Street, Woodbrook. WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. And the home store branches located at Barataria, Shogunas, and Eastgates Mall. Autographed copies now available on request. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh. I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters. Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People, and Closer to the Church.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your